Hi, everybody. It's Tony Caldwell, and welcome to a special edition of Uncaptive Agent. Typically on this podcast, we're talking about the future of insurance distribution. Today is going to be a little different because we're not talking about insurance at all, and we're certainly not talking about distribution. Today, I have as my guest Bob Christian, as I know him. And Bob is a former NFL football player, and he's a professional pilot. And Bob and I got to know one another because we've flown together. And flying as a two-person crew is all about teamwork. And so today, I really want to talk about teamwork. And I think teamwork is critically important to building successful businesses, whether it's an insurance agency or a grocery store. And so and Bob and I had a conversation a while back, but I want to kind of revisit today because I think it's really, really valuable. In fact, I've told probably 2 or 3 dozen people about our conversation because it made such an impact on me. And that's why I wanted everybody else to have a chance to hear it. So welcome, Bob.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be with you.
Yeah, and you're somewhere in a hotel room
in Texas right now. So I flew someone down here yesterday. Got to fly him back tomorrow. So,
well, I'm glad you can find some time in your schedule to jump on a quick podcast with me. For our listeners and viewers, let's talk a little bit about your athletic career because that's really part of the conversation I wanted to have. So, where'd you play football in college?
I played at Northwestern University back in the late '80s through 1990 was my last season there.
Okay, so what that tells me is you were a smart athlete because Northwestern is a tough, highly competitive school. What'd you study at Northwestern?
I studied electrical engineering.
Okay, now you took a really easy major while you were playing Division I college football, right?
I think I'm just a glutton for punishment all around.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to play professional football, you have to be, right? So tell us about your pro career. You left Northwestern, and I think you were in the backfield, right?
Yeah, I was a tailback at Northwestern. And then I got drafted in the 12th round. They don't have 12 rounds anymore, but I got drafted in the 12th round by the Atlanta Falcons in 1991. Okay. They cut me. And then I tried out that next spring with the London Monarchs of the World Football League. Thinking I'd get some experience, in the winter and have another chance the next year. Well, they cut me. And then I barely got another tryout that next summer with the San Diego Chargers. And I pulled a hamstring and then they cut me. So at that point it was over. And just by a literal miracle of God, somehow the Bears called me up and they signed me to their practice squad in 1992. And that was like Ditka's last year. And then I ended up playing the last 2 games of that year, played 2 more years there in Chicago, playing mostly special teams, and then got drafted to Carolina in the expansion draft and played 2 seasons there. And then when I was a free agent, I signed, Atlanta came calling back after I guess I had gotten better. And I'd switched to fullback when I was with the Bears. And then Atlanta brought me in when Dan Reese took the job in Atlanta. And they signed me to be their fullback, and I ended up starting for them for 6 years.
Wow. So, I'm just struck as you're going through that, then they cut me, and then they cut me, and then they cut me, and then they cut me. So, you kept coming back. You didn't take that lying down. You didn't take no as a final answer. That's interesting. Tell me, why was that? What motivated you? What powered you to keep going in the face of all that adversity?
Well, I'll be honest. There's a few things. First of all, my faith. Literally, one day I was running wind sprints, and this was after the Colts, who had said they were going to sign me for 1992. After I got cut by the London Monarchs, they basically dropped out. And at this point, everyone already had their camp rosters pretty much filled, and I wasn't on any. And I'm running wind sprints, and it's hard. Wind sprints I never liked it. I don't know anybody that really did, but and I was feeling miserable, and I was ready to throw in the towel. Like, what am I doing this for? This is stupid. all this hard work, and I'm not even going to get a tryout, much less make the team. And then just it's kind of I'm not weird, but just like it was kind of just it doesn't happen every day, but just this Bible verse I had read, Proverbs 14:23 says, all hard work brings profit, while mere talk leads only to poverty. And I was just like, it just popped in my head, and I was like, yeah, but what profit or wind sprint's going to give me, if I was sending out my resume, looking at engineering jobs at that point. So, well, what profit can wind sprints, bring to an engineering job, and so, and then there's another verse that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. It just popped into my head too. I'm like, so literally I made a decision right there on the track. Like, okay, this doesn't make sense to me, but I have to either walk in faith and keep going or follow what makes most sense to me and just, leave all that misery behind. And so luckily I kept working. And so, I will say, I mean, a couple other factors, I had supportive parents that had always encouraged me and blessed me. And then also, just to give testimony to the power of words and power of belief, like, as a coach, as a boss, like when you believe in people, it has big impact. And one of the other things that kept me going was my high school running backs coach, Randy Walker. When I was after spring football, my freshman year, he was sat down with us to go over goals for, I thought just for the upcoming season. And he sat down, he said, hey, my goal for you is that when you get done playing here at Northwestern, you play on Sundays. Because I think you have what it takes. And the fact that he believed that I could do it compelled me, to some degree, not to give up when things got tough too. So a combination of all those three factors kind of kept me going and fighting.
That's really an amazing story. And thank you for being willing to share. I mean, a couple of things I want to unpack there. The first is, obviously you didn't say this, but you had grit. I mean, you were working hard, running wind sprints when you didn't have any future in front of you to run them for. And, entrepreneurs, business people who start, going to business for themselves, often have to do really similar things. They have to work really hard, and they don't know that they're going to be successful. And, that grit, that work ethic kind of powers them through from the time when they don't have anything really happening till they finally get successful. And what allows you to have grit, you talked about faith, and I think that's really valuable. It's certainly been valuable in my own life. There's something else you didn't mention, Bob, which is courage. I mean, it takes guts to keep going when it doesn't look like there's a future. So, I think that's really, I hope our listeners and watchers are getting that. But you talked about something else too, which was the power of coaching and encouragement. Mm-hmm. And you obviously, as an athlete, you had coaches. As a professional pilot now, do you have coaches in your life that help you become better at what you're doing today?
I do, but not as we do training. Once a year we do recurrent training and I've had different. It's not been like one person. It's each year. Usually I get a different person. It just depends. Sometimes you get the same person twice, but I have a combination of people that have kind of helped me and I still I still remember my first flight instructor that helped me get my private license, which he's still he was probably the most highly influential of all my flight instructors. So I really appreciated him and he taught me.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, we've had some similar training experiences because we go to the same place for training and and here's what I think is valuable about that. I'm just curious what you think, but you get put into situations that you typically wouldn't find yourself in an airplane, right? Because
We hope not.
Yeah, and so it always seems to me like what the instructor is trying to do to you is push you until you break and then see what happens.
Right.
You kind of, and I know having flown in the simulator with other pilots, sometimes they get pushed farther than I do because they're better than me and they break later. But at the end of the day, we all break.
Right.
Or something breaks, and then we get to find out how we handle it. And so, thinking back to your athletic career, it seems like that's still part of it, right? So, you got pushed to the breaking point a whole bunch of times.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Which made you a better player.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's the only way we grow. We only grow. Like I know from, right after I retired from football, I joined my brother's business, training athletes. And one of the things you learn is that it's the stress that creates the growth. And that's both in, muscles and tendons and ligaments and bones, even in cartilage, like stress will make you grow. Now, overstress, causes breaks. So really we have to be pushed, in order for us to grow, and we have to put ourselves under stress.
Yeah. So, no business person builds a successful business over time without having some things that they think at the time is probably going to break them. I mean, we all have a cash flow crisis where we lose our best employees or the account that is a big chunk of our income, or there's things that happen, right? And you're tested. And my observation with entrepreneurs is that, those are traumatic events, but they're really the things that make you better, that allow you to keep, get to where you want to go with your goals. And if you don't have them, then you never really end up being as good as you could otherwise be. So it's really true in business too.
Yeah, it is. And in fact, it's just funny, just this past year or maybe 2 years ago, I read Northwestern posted a study that they had done. They have one of the best business schools in the country, and they did a study, and they found that one of the biggest markers of future success is failure early in one's career if you don't give up. People that fail early and don't give up end up going further in whatever career they're in.
Yeah. Yeah. I've read similar studies in the past, and in my own experience, that's also really true. In fact, I think that failure is tuition for something else. The implication is, well, you got to go do something else, right? You got to take that failure, learn from it, and keep moving. So, I want to talk about the conversation that the question that I asked you as we were droning along at 40,000 feet one day, watching the dials together, and because it was really. I loved your answer. I want to kind of unpack that too. So, my question was, and you played on some teams, if I remember right, that had losing seasons, right, in the NFL. So, like 4, 5, and 8 or whatever, right?
12 and 5 and
yeah. So you lost 11 times and you won 5 times, and that has to be frustrating. I played in college. I played soccer, and we had a season we won 2 and lost 11, and those are character builders. So anyway, so you played on losing teams, and then you got the chance to do what really, first place, very few people get to play in college, much less in the NFL, and then it's a tiny fraction of professional football players that ever get to play in the Super Bowl, and you did. And so by definition, you're playing on a championship high winning team. And what I'm curious about is, what was the difference? What was the difference in the losing team and playing on the winning team? Because everybody on both of those teams is super accomplished, or they wouldn't be in the NFL, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you're talking about great players on both teams. It's not athletic ability. There was something else, something different. What separated losing from the winning team?
Well, yeah, when I thought about this, and obviously we talked about it then, and it came out of, another time that I put some thought to it, and it really didn't take me too long, but that I knew that the difference was that the championship teams I was on, we really loved and cared for one another. the teams that ended up, early exit from the playoffs and just kind of trying to get the season over with. I mean, those are the teams where, we really didn't care about each other as much. We didn't love each other enough to sacrifice for one another. And it's a stark difference, really. And it's funny. It's, love compels you to sacrifice, sacrifice hurts. And so it seems like, well, do I want to sacrifice, but in the end, like when you have a team that loves one another and everybody's sacrificing for one another, you go so much further, and the team victory is so much better than any individual, victories that you get.
Yeah. Loving your teammates that's kind of touchy feely, and particularly for athletes and even business people, we don't talk about emotion very much, but obviously you feel like that was the key. Tell me, loving and caring for your teammates. What did that mean to you? I mean, what was different about that experience compared to maybe not having that level of commitment?
Well, think about this. Like, you love and you are energized, and you'll give your energy to things you care the most about. So, if you have a family, you have your kids. I mean, we spend all kinds of time and energy and money on our kids because we care about them. On a team, we could do the same thing. If we invest emotionally, like, hey, if we choose, and it's a choice, we have to make that choice. If I choose to care about somebody else, on my team or all my other teammates, on one hand, that's going to hurt me because I'm going to have to sacrifice. Because when you always end up sacrificing for what you love and care about. And so I might have to give a little extra, but that helps in so many different ways, because, every great victory requires that some people on that team go beyond what they think they're capable of. We didn't win World War II without, going through more hell on earth than
right.
What people thought we could do, and so it takes sacrifice. And so without that love for your teammates, like sacrifice just for yourself it's kind of impossible, because, if your interest is to preserve yourself, you're not going to sacrifice yourself. So the only thing that motivates us to go beyond that is when we love one another. And then on top of that, we get our energy, like when we care about our teammates and we want them to see success too. And so when they have success, we get energized because we're excited, because we've invested emotionally in those relationships, and to see them have success, it energizes us. And then that gives us energy for us to keep fighting. If I don't love my teammate, and maybe it's somebody that always is, all about themselves and thinks they're better than the team and everything, and they have success, then it tends to demotivate me. I'm like, now we're going to hear about it all week, and so what you find is, love is a catalyst for more love, and selfishness is a catalyst for more selfishness. So it's a battle within each team, which is going to win out over the course of the season or the time that team's together. And and just, it was so, in 98, we were like a bunch of brothers. I mean, we would fight hard for each other, and we tease each other, but like brothers do. But we were so tight knit, and we believed in one another, and we never gave up on one another. And and you wanted to make a play, not because I want all the glory. You wanted to make a play because you knew it was going to bless all your teammates, and you wanted to get them excited. And so it really it was the best year of any sport that I've ever been in my whole life.
Wow. I remember you telling me, I think that, so professional football teams, just like high school football teams, you videotape your performance, and then you decide, and the other teams, and you kind of dissect what you did well and what you need to improve on for the next game. And you told me a story about, going into film after having a really good game yourself, but how you looked at it differently. You remember that?
I'm trying to remember.
Well, I think what you told me was that, you were really excited to go in and see a play or two that you'd made in the game the previous week. But what you're really excited about was to see the play of your teammates and the plays that they made.
Right. I mean, that's what we did like in 98. And we did it always when I was with playing for Dan Reese. After every win like that, I think it was a Saturday morning before the next game, he would put together a highlight reel of all the highlights, from the previous game, and we'd watch it. And it was a fun, we were celebrating the victories and it was a lot of fun to see, because the team got so energized, especially, if somebody who doesn't normally get the limelight, there's a lot of positions, a lot of players that work hard all the time and they make us better. And they don't always get the limelight. So when they get a chance and they make a big play, the whole team, because we love everyone on the team and we love those guys just as much as the stars, and so when they make a play, we were even more excited and jacked up for them, because they got that chance and we wanted that for them.
Sure. And so in an insurance agency, and many of our listeners are, that's what they do for a living. They're building insurance agencies. It's the CSR or the accounting department that, doesn't often get the attention that they deserve. I see a lot of businesses that have goals, but they don't stop, they never really stop to celebrate. And you mentioned celebrations being really key because that's a motivation, right? Celebration motivates you to go win the next game.
Well, it's actually, I read a book by a psychiatrist, talking about the brain and the way the brain grows or the way it works. And one of the things is like dopamine, which is the pleasure hormone that when we experience pleasure, it releases dopamine. And dopamine, what it does, it solidifies, it strengthens the neural processes that happen just before the dopamine hits. So really, if we celebration, it releases dopamine. So when we celebrate, so whatever we celebrate will improve, will continue, and so that's a good way. Like as a coach, and I'm coaching now. I try to celebrate when the players do things the right way, when they have the right attitudes. We need to celebrate that. Because that will make it easier for them to continue that,
Yeah. And so you mentioned something else just a minute ago that I think I want to make sure we don't pass by either. And that you mentioned when you played for Dan Reese, right? It was different. Okay. So that was the head coach at that time, right? And so he did things differently, obviously, to facilitate the culture for the team that not only allowed for celebration, but encouraged this caring and sacrificing. So as the leader, what do you think was unique about what he did that helped make your team a champion?
Well, one, he cared. Like he's the only coach, like in my whole career, and I played with 3 different teams. I got cut by a few others. And most of the times the head coaches, because they know they have to make cuts. They know that they bring 80 or 90 guys into training camp and they keep 50 basically. And that's hard. And so most of the time the head coaches, I noticed this, that they would like keep themselves apart. They wouldn't get attached to players. They wouldn't get to know them personally because it might hurt too bad if they had to cut them. Dan, he invested that care in each individual. Even the guy, I see him do it with kids that I knew and everyone knew that the only way this kid is ever going to make the team is if we, have catastrophic injuries in that position,
Right.
And it's, but he would get to know them. He'd ask about their family. He truly cared. And then, and he hired good coaches too. One of the, one guy that was a big example to me, Wade Phillips. One of the things he always did, and it was weird, like it kind of towards the end of my career, I was like, hey, I want to play for Dan, the rest of my career, but, like, well, who else would I want to play for? Is there anybody else out there? if Dan retired or, and I said, Wade Phillips, I played for him. And the reason is this, and it's almost solely on this, like whenever the defense played a really good game and Dan Reese would let, each of the coordinators kind of talk about, what their side of the ball did well or not, how they did, kind of evaluate. And Wade, whenever he had a great defensive day, the next in that meeting, when he got to talk, he'd always say, hey, and he said it with all sincerity. You knew he wasn't just, saying it. He said, hey, the only way we were able to do what we did on Sunday is because you guys gave us such a great look all week in practice. You offensive scout team guys that were giving us a good look. And it was only because of that we were able to come out and play so well. And so that, to me, that is so inspiring that a leader that is humble and gives credit, spreads the credit, not hogging it. It's all about me. No, you spread it because, and I thought about that. I said, why is that? And, part of it is, if we're going for team success, when the team succeeds, the team succeeds. And the team is nothing more than the assembly of all the parts. And so you can't do anything without all the parts of that team. And so the effort of you say the kicker, well, you may say, you don't work as hard, you don't carry the big loads, but, oh man, when it's the end of the game and you need that field goal, and the field goal, if we make it, we win, we miss it, we lose. Oh man, you're totally dependent on that kicker, but the same way, we're totally dependent on the guys that are just, they don't play in the games, but they give us a look on scout team. Because if they do a good job, it makes us better. And then we're able to win. And so I feel like as leaders, I think leaders that honor the efforts and sacrifice of all the members of the team, will find the most success. Those that, and I played for another coach that basically he had like half the team was kind of the good guys and half the teams are we're stuck with you guys. And the way he conducted things, it could be the stars that messed up, but because I guess they're untouchable because he paid them too much money. He would never say anything about that, but he'd blame the guy who couldn't stay on the block for 12 seconds on a kickoff return, that's like one of the hardest plays in football. And he blamed the loss on one of those guys. And so that kind of divided the team and everyone was selfish. Everyone just like, well, hey, I got paid, it's like everyone was just out for themselves. It's just a business. I'm here to do a job. And there was no sense of team.
That's interesting. I'm just here to do a job. Lots of businesses are full of people who are just doing a job. I mean, they come at 8, they go at 5, and what happens in between and the results of it, they don't really care because, as you said, they're getting paid. But they probably aren't playing on a championship team, right? And so, just for a second, talk about, obviously in sports, when you win, everybody's super excited. There's a lot of celebration going on. And it's a happier place. But is there anything else, between, being on a team where everybody just got paid, didn't care about each other versus a team that, was winning, but had that really tight-knit relationship? How does it spill over into personal, not just the team success and what gets printed in the newspapers, but is there anything beyond that that's really valuable that you take away from that experience for your life?
Right. Well, I guess the way I look at it is this way. If you're not going to basically culture, develop a culture and foster a culture of, a team, you're going to end up spending more. Yeah, you can pay someone enough to get them to do what you want them to do, but it's going to cost you more because most people, we want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And there's, I think all of us are built that way. It's like, it's not just all about me. If the universe is all just about me, then man, I'm going to be depressed because that means it's pointless, right? But when you're part of a team and you feel a part of, like, and I always felt the term that always came to mind on the good teams I was on was family. It feels like family, where we care about one another, and you want to be a part of that. You want to be a part of a family. You want to succeed as a family. And it doesn't mean all the success in the world doesn't mean as much if you can't share that with your family. And so I really feel like, the more you foster that feeling of a family in your businesses, the more people will be motivated. They'll be motivated not just to work for themselves, because money's good, but like once you have enough money, oh, okay. And I saw it all the time in the NFL. A guy signed a big contract, got the big signing bonus, and he was a beast the year before because it was his contract year, and then he signed the big deal, and suddenly he's not as motivated anymore. But when your motivation is the family, then it doesn't matter what you get paid, to a point. I mean, obviously, if you're getting shafted, then you don't feel, you don't feel part of the family.
Right. Wow. Bob, I'm even more inspired today from getting to have this conversation with you really again than I was the first time. And so I certainly hope folks who've listened to the conversation feel the same way. Kind of just if I could recap really quickly, I mean, team, it matters more than the individual. It's about how you contribute to the team and how you feel about the players and the sacrifice that you're willing to make because you feel like you're part of something unique. You use the term family. And that leadership is about caring for the whole team, but really creating the culture in which those things take place. And, I think it works. It clearly worked in the NFL because, the Falcons got to the Super Bowl. And that's the pinnacle of success in that business. It's got to work in the insurance agency business just as well for those people who put those things into place. And so I really appreciate you being willing to have the conversation with me again. And just real quick, any last thoughts you want to share with us?
I think you summed it up pretty well, and I don't think there's too much else. It's just it's pretty clear cut that when we love one another, we fight for one another. When we don't, we don't. And everybody wants to be a part of a team where everyone loves one another. But we're all selfish. We all tend to, we want to make selfish decisions too. So it's always, like I said, that battle between am I going to sacrifice myself for the good of the team every day, or am I going to, hey, just look after myself? And the more we can, as a team, the more we can, look out for the best of the team, then guess what? We're going to have the most fun. We're going to have the most success, and it's going to be the most fulfilling, job we can have. Versus, even if you get paid, it doesn't mean nearly as much if you're all alone.
Right. Yeah, totally get it. Well, hey, Bob, thank you so much for being with me today, and let's go fly together sometime soon.
Oh, yeah, yes. I can't wait. Thanks, Tony.
I'm talking to independent agency owners about this all the time. If you'd like to have a more personalized conversation, click on the button or the link in the description, and we'll make that happen. You can also reach out to me at tonycaldwell.net/contact.